Conquest's Revenge is more than just a battle. It's a baptism of blood. It gives our protagonist a whole new moral dimension. The Mad Conquest has returned, and he's on a sacred mission to eradicate the cancer threatening the entire empire. But wait until you hear this. The first major change we see is that the old sadist has stopped playing games. In the comics, Conquest repeats his same mistakes from Earth. He lets his sadism take over, turning his duty into sick pleasure. But the series, it takes a completely different path. It leaves the sadism aside. Mostly, that's why the Mad Conquest's first move is to wipe out the cancer from the purple Viltrumites. But guys, this is just the beginning. The changes start the second the Geldarian armor detects danger. The ship gets hit almost instantly. The alarms go off, and Thula orders the command bridge to separate. In the comics, Thula isn't even there. Captain Pike is the one in charge. The alarms scream as a colliding object is detected. Nobody knows what's happening. But that object, it's the body of Conquest himself. The captain wants to flee to Taliscria, but Mark screams at him to go back for his father. Oliver, Tech Jacket, and Invincible are flying naked through the void of space. And that's when they come face to face with a dead man walking. The smiling Conquest is flanked by Lucan and a mystery Viltrumite. In the comics, this guy never even had a name. His creator, Ryan Ottley, just called him Rande, because he used him as filler whenever Robert Kirkman needed an extra body. But now, Kragg has taken his place. The series is really finding its own voice here. Mark doesn't go back for his father. He goes back for Oliver. His little brother is his main responsibility now. Mark is the one who brought him on this mission, and if anything happens to him, it's all on Mark's conscience. A change that seems small at first, it brings a whole new wave of emotion to the story. After the impact, the Thraxan is still alive. The boy just regained consciousness. And this is where we see a massive narrative shift. Oliver is carrying this heavy burden. He's desperate to prove he's strong enough. Remember, his entire race was practically wiped out by just a few Viltrumites. That's a trauma that lives in the back of his mind every single day. He needs to prove he has the power to save his mother. And that drive pushes him to attack immediately. While Lucan holds Mark back, Kragg takes on Alan. Now, including this specific Viltrumite is a really interesting choice. See, Kragg is usually the guy in charge of defending the Drydell post, the Coalition's very first target. He's also the one who attacks Taliscria alongside the Regent. In the comics, his story ends when he's gutted by the space gunmen during the final battle for Viltrum. But here, he's riding shotgun for Conquest's Revenge. But check this out. The adaptation cuts out almost all of Conquest's dialogue. In the comics, the old madman loves playing mind games. He harasses Mark, savoring every terrified reaction. He even tortures him mentally, telling him he'll have to live through the horror of being the last one left alive before he dies. In fact, the only reason Conquest loses in the comics is because he treats the fight like a game. Nolan even mentions it. Conquest was defeated because he was a spectator to his own battle. After thousands of years of atrocities, he'd lost his spark. And that gave Mark the edge. But in the series, none of that happens. Conquest fights like a desperate animal, but he just gets outclassed. And I'll be honest, that worries me. We're only 6 weeks away from seeing his legendary fight with Battle Beast, the one where the beast ends up locked away. And right now, Conquest doesn't exactly look like he's on the level of the greats. One thing's for sure, though. Thragg's scolding definitely paid off. Conquest greets the Thraxan with the exact same slap we see in the comics. He plans to execute the boy right then and there. But unlike the source material, the series gives Oliver a bit of an upgrade. He actually holds his own for a second, using his speed. Of course, the power gap is still massive. Luckily for Oliver, the sadist can't help himself. He wants to savor every drop of pain he can squeeze out of the boy. And that gives Nolan just enough time to jump in. The battle between Conquest and Nolan is incredibly even. This is a huge departure from the comics, where Nolan basically looks like Conquest's pet. Conquest actually caresses Nolan's face, telling him how lucky he feels to be the one who gets to kill the traitor. But in the series, there's this mutual respect. It's like they both know they're looking at the absolute best the Empire has to offer. Meanwhile, Alan and Zoe are tangling with Kragg. In the comics, Alan is barely surviving an explosion, while Thompson is begging for help. The Geldarian has tried every laser he can think of, and nothing works. And I love that the show portrays Zoe as a teenager. In the original Tech Jacket timeline, it's never really clear how young he is. When the Geldarian faces Rende, it's his first time fighting someone with that kind of godlike power. In the comics, the fight turns when Zach Thompson realizes the best way to hurt a Viltrumite is with the raw physical force of his own armor. But the series? It completely skips that. Zoe keeps blasting away with lasers without doing much damage, which honestly is totally realistic. She's a complete novice at this point. Don't worry though, Zoe is going to have her time to shine during the final assault on Viltrum. Just wait until you see her taking down multiple agents at once. Mark dives straight into the chaos, intervening in the fight between Conquest and his father. He's dying to know, how is this guy even alive? But Conquest isn't in the mood for a chat. He brushes it off with a few cold words, giving all the credit to the magical bride, the same excuse he gave Regent Kragg. Then, Conquest goes back to his favorite hobby, psychological warfare. He tells Mark he can't wait to taste the girl's blood again. Big mistake. This sets Mark off. He charges with a raw determination we haven't seen before, absolutely dominating Conquest. This is a huge shift from the comics. In the original story, Conquest shakes Mark off whenever he feels like it, even mocking him, saying the boy isn't nearly as strong as he thinks he is. Meanwhile, the Earth recruits are getting wrecked. Oliver doesn't stand a chance against Lucan, and Tech Jacket's helmet takes a critical hit from Kragg's fist. Kragg even laughs at how pathetic the Coalition forces are. But the series gives Oliver a bit more credit. He actually puts up some real resistance against Lucan. That's pretty surprising, considering Lucan easily handled an 18-year-old Mark back on Thraxa. Then we get this incredibly tense moment. Zoe's helmet is crushed by Kragg's boot, and she loses her vision. The Viltrumite moves in dangerously close, but he doesn't kill her. He just watches. It's a rare flash of humanity. If these guys were pure, mindless evil, he would have ended her right there. But Kragg hesitates, and that hesitation gives Alan just enough time to swoop in for the save. Remember, the Geldarian armor is arguably the most powerful weapon in the entire Invincible universe. Its power is infinite. It can create anything the host imagines. It could even create more physical space for Alan to be comfortable inside. But Zoe refuses. I mean, can you blame her? Alan is a grown man. She's only known for 24 hours. But back to the action. Oliver's resilience is impressive, but his impulsiveness is a death wish. He makes the same mistake over and over. Lucan is literally a split second away from taking the boy's life when, boom, Omni-Man appears. Nolan has this look of pure disappointment on his face, shocked by how much of a novice his second son really is. And the crazy part? Oliver doesn't even realize how close he just came to dying. He actually tells his father he doesn't need his help. In the comics, this is a father-son bonding moment where they team up to beat down Lucan. But in the show, that relationship is way more complicated. There's no warm, fuzzy feeling here. As the fight rages on, Mark keeps bugging Conquest about his resurrection, but the old man refuses to spill the gossip. On the other side of the battlefield, things are looking up. Alan and Zoe are holding their own. But the Empire isn't done yet. They release their slaves into the fray. Nolan realizes they're being overwhelmed and orders a retreat to find cover. In the comics, Oliver gets hit in the ribs by a laser. In the show, it's Lucan's fist that knocks the wind out of him. Either way, Oliver starts to drift away from the group. Conquest sees this and can't believe his luck. He thinks the weakest of the herd is trying to run away. He decides to end this bad joke once and for all. He blasts Mark back and begins the chase. Now, the series skips the famous Lakers run page, but it replaces it with a shot that looks like a horror movie. Conquest appears behind Oliver like a literal demon. He reaches out to rip the boy's head off with his bare hands, but at the last second, Mark intercepts him at incredible speed, saving his brother's life. They crash onto the planet's surface, just like in the books. But here's the kicker. In the comics, Mark explains his strategy. He saw Conquest exhale before they entered the atmosphere, so his plan is to suffocate him. In the series, it's a bit more vague. Mark just declares that the Conqueror will never breathe again. It seems like a weird plan since Viltrumites can hold their breath for months, but the impact on the surface is so brutal that it forces all the air out of Conquest's lungs anyway. The show's visuals are great, but man, those original comic frames, they captured a level of raw, bloody intensity that's hard to beat. In the comics, Kirkman gives us a version of Mark possessed by an undeniable killer instinct. It's the exact moment the good guy from Earth breaks, letting the Viltrumite predator out. Mark makes it clear the rules of the game have changed. He's no longer fighting as a hero seeking justice. He's fighting as a murderer driven by the raw, selfish need to save the people he loves. This isn't about a glorious victory. Mark is looking for a way to survive, poetically delivering conquest to the slowest, most agonizing death a 30,000-year-old warrior can suffer. It's the ultimate humiliation, dying for a single breath of air at the hands of someone you've always called weak. Now, the show handles this a bit differently. In the comics, the struggle is so violent, they actually re-emerge into the atmosphere, where Conquest's eyes finally fill with fear. In the adaptation, the flight is missing. Conquest stops their momentum with ease and starts brutalizing Mark's torso. It's clear he stopped playing games. But honestly, it makes Mark's plan seem almost impossible. How can asphyxiation work when he's taking that much punishment? While this is happening, we get a completely original 3-minute sequence in space. In the comics, Nolan just leaves without a word. But here, he explains that the space battle is a lost cause and tells them to find a safe place. Alan and Zoe decide to hide on the Empire's own ship. Talk about hiding in plain sight. In the books, we never even see how they manage to disappear. But let's get to the main event, the outcome. The show's version of the Conquest rematch, it absolutely leaves the comic in the dust. Mark pins Conquest's neck against the planet's surface with everything he's got. The blows are savage. It's so brutal you have to wonder if Mark even has a plan anymore. Then, the unthinkable happens. In one of the strikes, we see the Mad Conquest break Mark's spine. Just like that, Mark is a paraplegic, but he refuses to let go. Conquest starts to shake. There's almost no oxygen left. And here, the animation gives us a look at the true Viltrumite soul, the face of a predator. Mark isn't an innocent dove either. He uses his teeth to defend himself, biting down just like he did back on Earth. To defeat the animal, Mark has to give up his own humanity. He's no longer a superhero. He's a predator. Through that sheer brutality, Mark regains control. But Conquest makes one final move, the same strike that pierced the eve of Earth. Mark screams in pain as Conquest starts to pull out 8 meters of his intestines. In the comics, Mark just loses consciousness in a single pull, but the series expands on it. Conquest uses both hands to neutralize him, and for a few seconds, everything goes quiet. And the looks on their faces, heartbreaking. Mark's gaze is one of absolute desolation. He promised Eve he'd come back. He promised his mother he'd be careful. Now he's just a child, realizing he's living his last seconds, knowing he'll never see his family again. But Conquest's gaze is the most shocking of all. The Herald of Death facade crumbles, and in his eyes, there's peace. Remember, he wasn't born a monster. He was a child indoctrinated by a culture that only rewards strength. Violence was the only thing that kept his loneliness at bay. Now, in the arms of death, he finally finds the rest his soul never knew. If you look closely, a drop of blood sits in his tear duct, a literal tear of blood. The battle ends with a haunting shot, 2 tiny figures in a cold, lifeless landscape, joined by a single pool of blood. No glory, just tragedy. Nolan and Oliver arrive, but it's too late. Nolan looks at his son in horror. Seeing his boy take down Conquest should be a father's greatest pride. But instead, he's filled with terror at the price Mark had to pay. Conquest dies exactly as he lived, clinging to brutality, holding his opponent's entrails as he drifts into eternity. Back on Taliskria, Telia reports the destruction of her ship and officially declares war on the Viltrumite Empire. The stage is set. The 3 best episodes of the season are right around the corner. What did you think of this rematch? Did you catch any other details the show changed? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't seen the comic version yet, check out my full breakdown right here. See you in the next one.